The first set is the free pair on the right. When these three edges are solved, you simply do an insert. You know this one. I'll have to teach it. For this one, when these two are solved and this one is not solved, you simply do a sledge. I also don't have to teach that. You know it. For this one, when these two are solved and this one is not solved, you do that. This one's also weird because there's a few good algs for it. There's that one. There's that one. If you get it from this angle, you could do that. Try not to get. Try to force your last pair to be front right though, or at least until you learn FL, which I don't know. For this one, when you have a line, you do that. There's also another alg that's viable for this. It's that. I don't like the execution on it though. This one, when there's just this one and these two are unsolved, you do S prime or U prime R prime S. There's a few ways to execute that. You do that. I don't know. I just do this most of the time, but maybe that's a bad habit. This one's really important. It kind of shows up in a lot of cases down the line. So yeah. When this one edge is unsolved in the back, you will do RU R prime U2 sledge. So yeah. That one's pretty intuitive. This one, when the unsolved edge is on the side, you will do a sledge and you cancel into F6 prime. If you know this OLO, it's just that part of it, basically. Yeah. For this one, when it's gonna give you a dot if you insert normally, I like to do I rotate and I do R prime F prime R U2 M prime U prime M. For this case, when the free pair is on the right and all the edges are solved, do an insert. For this one, when you have hedge, just do hedge. I don't have to explain it. For this case, like it's mirror, there's a few good algs. There's that. There is that. There is that. But yeah, use whatever one of those you like. I have what I feel like is the fastest on my sheet, but you can look at the alts and stuff. For this one, when it's like this, there's two angles to do it from. If you get it from here, you can do that, which I think is actually pretty fast. You can also rotate and do that. For this one, when you have just this one unsolved, you can do that. You can also, if you're at this angle, you can do the S move insert from L. This one is somewhat similar to the last one. You could do R prime D prime R wide R U prime wide R prime DR. That is the same as the last alg, except you do U prime instead of a U. And also you can do for this one you can just do the left two moves. Yeah. For this case, there's two good algs for it. You can do R, U2, R, D, wide R prime, U prime, wide R, D prime, R2. It flows pretty smoothly. It feels kind of like doing a commutator almost. There's also this one, just lefty. Just do that. Yeah. For this case, when you get it from here, you can do when it's a dot case, you can do that. So R U R prime U2 prime U M U prime. For this case, when it's a split free pair and all the edges are oriented, do that. For this case, when it's a split free pair and the two unsolved edges are kind of like with the free pair, and this one is separate from them, you do S, insert the pair normally, S prime. For this case, when the unsolved edge is attached to the corner like this, you do F prime, R, U prime, F prime, wide R, U prime, R prime, F2, and then insert the pair normally. That one's a little weird. It's not super intuitive, but you can kind of see it getting solved, so I think it's pretty easy to understand. For this case, when the split pair has a line with it, you do a sledge, but you don't finish it. You insert this free pair and then solve. That one's a little weird, but it goes very fast, so yeah. For this case, when these two unsolved edges are like with the free pair, you do S prime, well, you rotate first, obviously. S prime, R prime, U prime, R, S. You could also do that from the L move angle. This case is similar to one of the algs we did for the solved free pair. You do R2, D, white R, U prime, white R prime, D prime, R2. There's a lot of this type of alg in zbls, so get used to it, I guess. I don't know. This case is somewhat similar to the last one, so don't get confused. This one has like the solved edges matched up with this corner, kind of. And the unsolved ones are like here. You do it from here, R prime, D prime, white R, U prime, white R prime, D, and then insert. For this case, when it's gonna give you a dot, if you insert, you do, you rotate, and you do this case. This one's a pretty common F12 trick. I suspect that you would already know it, but I'm trying to be completionist, I guess. For the split free pair on the right, and the edges are oriented, do an insert. With the split free pair on the right and the edge like this, you do an M, U prime, R, U, R prime, M prime. You can there's like a few different ways to execute it. You can do like, you don't even have to do an M move. You can kind of do like a white R prime R, but I do the M move personally. And then, yeah, so then I'm in a good position to just do the M prime at the end, like R prime, M prime. That one's a really cool case. I like to have that be like, for a few of the cases where you have to, I like to be able to reduce this case for some of my other algs, so yeah. This is my least favorite case in the entire alg set because I truly don't know if there's anything that's better than just inserting into OLL. But for sake of having an alg for it, there's F prime, U2, F, U, or U prime, R prime. The reason that I think that inserting into OLL is probably better is because like it's really easy to predict because you'll have an L-shaped OLL with it in the back, and it's literally just a 3-move insert. It's kind of the same logic as to why people don't learn soon zbl, because it's just so fast that like it's fine if you're 2 looking at, or in this case 3 looking at. But yeah, I mean, it's good to have an alg for it, and that works, I guess. I like using that alg for OH because just, yeah, it's better to do for OH, but still. Anyways, for this one, when there's a line, you do it from here, white R, U prime, white R prime, U prime, solve. So this one's like a little weird, but it's fast, and I picked it up pretty easily, so hopefully same can be said for y'all. For this case, when there's these 2 unsolved and this one's solved, you do S prime, insert S. For this case, when there's the unsolved ones make a line here, you can do F, insert the pair, solve. For this one, when the unsolved pieces are here and the solved one is here, I like to do R, U prime, R2, F, R, F prime, R, U2, R prime. Pretty long out, but it works. And for the final one of the free pairs, you can do R prime, D, when it's a dot case, R prime, D prime, R, U, R prime, D, R2, U, R prime. Hopefully that was like understandable. I think especially because you'll have the algs in front of you on the sheet to follow along with. It should be fine, but yeah, please like add insight in the comments, like make comments on the sheet if you think there's any better algs or anything like that. But yeah, I like that case. Hi, for the next set in the zbls video series, we're going to be covering the cases where the 2 F12 pieces are separate and the top colors match. So it's this, and their mirrors. But yeah, let's start. This case is very self-explanatory. It is the F12 alg for that. For this case, when there's a line kind of like in between the corner and the edge, I like to do sled, wait no, that's hedge, yeah. hedge, and then I do this case, which you should know because it makes sense, but it's just R prime cancel on the sledge. So to repeat that, I do hedge, view, that case. For this case, when there's these two solved in between the two pieces, kind of, I rotate, and I do R prime F, wait no, it's like kind of like a L prime U, L U prime, wide L prime, U prime, wide L. I don't think, no, that's a different case. There's like, never mind. Yeah, this one should be easy to learn, but yeah, that was on the sheet. For this case, when these two are solved and this one is not solved in between the two pieces, I like to do R prime, D prime, R U R prime, D, but I don't do the last R, I do F R F prime. So it's kind of like a commutator canceled into a sledge, if that helps you understand it. For this one, when these two are unsolved and this one's solved, I do U prime, R U R prime, U, sledge. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just the standard F2L. For this one, when these two are unsolved and this one is solved, I like to do, I start kind of with this OLL almost. I do that, and then I can insert like that, or I can insert with U2. There's a few different ways to do it, but yeah. For this case, when these two are unsolved and this one's solved, the unsolved ones make a line of sorts. You do F, sexy, F prime, insert. So yeah, you literally just like brute force the EO, kind of. For this one, there's a few different algs for it. I use most often, just because it feels intuitive, is I do R, U prime, R prime, U, M prime, U prime, M, U2, solve. That might look a little weird. If you don't like that one, you can do R2, D, wide R prime, U prime, wide R, D prime, R prime, U prime, R prime. So it's basically just like R2, D, solve the pair, D prime, then solve. For starting with the mirror cases for that one, for this one, it's just solve the pair. For this one, when there's a line of solved pieces, you do U, R, U prime, R prime, rotate, or well, kind of do like a YD, and then solve the pair. For this one, when these two are unsolved and these two are solved and this one is unsolved, you do U prime, R, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R prime. For this case, when these two are solved and this one is unsolved, you do R prime, D prime, F, R, U2, R prime, F, D, R. That one is definitely a weird alg, but it goes pretty fast, so yeah. This case is pretty self-explanatory. This one is when this is the only solved edge, you just do that and sledge. This case is the mirror of the back mirror of one of the algs from the previous set. You do R prime, wide R prime, U prime, R, U, and then solve from here kind of however you want, if that makes sense. For this case, when the unsolved pieces make a line, you rotate here and you do R prime, F prime, U prime, F, U2, R. For this case, when it would give you a dot if you solve normally, you do R, U prime, R prime, and then Y, D prime, and then do that case. So just for this case, when all the edges are oriented, you do that F2L pair as you would. For this case, when there's a line, there you can do R, U, R prime, U, and then this case, which has shown up a little bit already. These two cases have very similar algs, and I'm going to teach them together to help you like understand them. So this one, you do r prime d prime r u2 r prime d f r f prime. So it's one of those like commutators canceled into sludge, except it's a u2 commutator instead of a u move commutator like this case was. So you do that. Back. And then for this one, it's quite literally the same thing, except the ru2 r prime you do is with wide moves. So you do so the way you recognize that they're different is, what I like to do is, like, I know these are the two cases, so it's like these are the solved edges and these are the solved edges. That if I see that a u2 will put the solved edges in the back left, that's how I know that I just do it with regular moves. And for this one, if I see that a u2 will put the solved edges in the front left, that's how I know I'll do wide moves. That is probably a bad recognition system for that, but feel free to come up with your own. But yeah, know that this one right here is the regular move one. That's just what I know. And I mean, I use both pretty consistently in solves, so it ends up not being too big of an issue, but yeah. This case is very self-explanatory. You build the pair, sludge it in. This case is very fast and spammable. These two are the unsolved edges. You do hedge, solve the pair. This one is pretty fast as well. When these two are the unsolved edges, you do u, r, u prime, r prime, u, sludge, insert the pair. For this one, when it would give you a dot case, you do, this is one of my favorite algs, m prime, u prime, m, u2, solve. So yeah, you can think about it as like you basically build a pair with the cross edge and this one, and then you insert. This one is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the standard F2L pair. However, one note is if you're going to do it from here, like, if you're going to do it from here, I mean, you want to have your thumb on front for most of your F2L logs. If you don't know that, you probably shouldn't be learning zbls. But also, like, do your own thing, bro. I don't care. Then, so if you want thumb on front, if you're going to do thumb on front, rather, r prime u2 r, u, r prime u2 r. So making sure to do it with the u2 insert is like a good habit to have. As you can see, even when I'm like setting it up, I'm like not really doing that all that well. To have it, I need to still work on, but thumb on front is preferable for most cases. Can't believe I spent almost a minute talking about this alg. For this case, you rotate to here. This one's a little weird, but I like it. U, r prime, f prime, u prime, f2, u, f prime, r. So how I've thought about it is like you do, it's almost like a b prime into, it's like a b prime into like this case, basically. So it's like b prime, that, and then solve. But you do it from another angle to make it all RUF instead of dealing with b moves. For this case, when these two are solved and this one is opposite, you do r prime, u2, we do like wide r prime u2, r2, u, r2, u, r. That one was a pretty common like F2L trick taught back in the day to solve edges from that case. So maybe you know it, but yeah. For this case, when these two are solved, you do u, sledge, and then solve the pair normally. For this one, when the unsolved pieces make a line, you rotate, and you do the pair lefty normally, and sledge it in. For this case, when the unsolved edges are surrounding the corner, you do u, hedge, solve the pair, u, sledge. It's similar to the case from 2 algs ago, except you sledge the pair in at the end. This case is really weird. I kind of like it though. When this is the solved edge, you do u2. Wait, no, u. Wait, you do u prime. My bad. L prime. You take this pair out, essentially. You sledge it in, and then solve the pair like that. So it goes pretty fast, and you kind of like almost execute it with wide R moves. But yeah, so you take the pair out, sledge, insert. It's weird, but I like it. This one is the mirror of the other dot case. You do M prime U M, U2, wide R prime FR. This next set is when the two SBL pieces are separate and the top colors don't match. So yeah. When EO is solved, you do that. You could also do that. Self-explanatory case. When the edges make a line, you do F sexy F prime, then you insert. So yeah, you like, it's kind of similar to one of the cases from the previous video, where you do, yeah, you just do the same thing basically, but with a different insert. This next case is pretty intuitive. You probably do this even if inadvertently, but you do R, U prime, R prime, you rotate, insert the pair. Basically just put the unsolved edge into the pair, into the slot, and then solve. For this case, when this is the unsolved edge, you do wide R, U, R prime, U prime, M, then insert the pair. So there's a few different ways to execute that, but I like to do wide R prime, R2, insert. For this case, it's these two are unsolved. You rotate, hedge, or yeah, like lefty hedge. You can also do sledge and then rotate, but that isn't as good. Lefty edge, U2, insert the pair. For this one, when the unsolved edges make a line, you do from here, you do wide R, U prime, wide R prime, U2, wide R, U, R prime, insert. That one's pretty long, but it's super fast. So yeah, you do wide R prime, U prime, R, U2, R, U, R prime, bang. For this case, when the unsolved edge is here, you rotate to here, you solve this pair while hiding the corner, and then you do U into this case, which is the mirror of that case, which you learned already. Yeah. For this case, when it's a dot, you do R prime U R, well, you rotate first, and then R prime U R U, and then solve this case. For the starting with the mirrors, or I guess the standard ones, but you solve the pair intuitively for that one. For this one, when the solved edges make a line, you do U, or well, you set it up to here, R, U prime, R prime, F, U, R, U prime, R2, F prime, R. So you basically set it up into this case. So here, you set it up, and then do that one, yeah. For this one, when the solved edges surround the corner, you do F prime, U, F, insert. That one's intuitive. You should know how to do that kind of already. For this one, when the corner and edge surround the solved edges, you do a sledge, and then U2, solve the pair. For this case, when the corner and edge surround the unsolved edges, like this, you do hedge, U2, insert. For this case, when the corner is like facing like this with the solved edge, you do U, you hide the edge, and then solve that case. So, like that. For this case, I have a really bad recognition system for this case. I noticed that if it looks like I can do the case, I'll do the case. So I end up pausing a lot on this one. If you have a better recognition system for this one, let me know in the comments or on the sheet or something. But basically for this one, if you can hide the corner and these two are solved, you do U R prime U prime, and then same as last time. Yeah, that was poorly explained, but that's just about as good as I can do with that alg, because it's kind of just like I know it when I know it, you know. For this case, final one in the set, you do R, U prime, R prime, U prime, and then solve that pair like that. This video will be doing the cases where the two pieces are separate and the yellow is on top. Or, well, white on top if you do, you know what I mean. So yeah, this one, you solve the pair. For this case, there are two good algs. There's R, U2, R prime U into that pair, or that case that you already know. Or we could do R, U2, R2, U prime F, U, R, U prime, R prime, F prime. Yeah. For this case, when it looks like the two solved edges are kind of in the back compared to the unsolved ones, you use sledge and then solve this pair. For this one, when the solved edges are surrounding the corner, you do R, U2, R prime, U, insert, U2, sledge. So yeah, it's like R, U2, R prime, U, and then you just case, basically. For this case, when the unsolved edges are surrounding the corner, you do hedge, U, double sexy. For this case, when the unsolved edges make a line, you do R, U2, R2, F, R2, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. This is kind of a combination of a lot of things you do. So you solve the pair, you sledge it in, cancel into sexy F prime. For this case, this one's pretty intuitive. You should already know it. It's R, U2, R2 cancel and sledge. For this case, when it's a dot case, you do this RUF alg, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F2. So, okay, wait, there's like, it's probably best to do R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F2, R2, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F prime, R. I'm like trying to switch to this one as we speak, so this one isn't as deep into my muscle memory, but it's just an alg, basically, I guess. But yeah, it's fine. For the mirrors, when the edges are solved, solve the pair. When the solved edges make a line, you do L prime, U2, L, U prime, F, and you do that case. It's the mirror of, it's mirror, basically. For this case, when these two are the solved corners, the solved edges, you do, you start with a hedge, but you don't finish the hedge, and you cancel into a commutator. For this case, when the edges surround the corner, or the solved edges surround the corner rather, you do R, U prime, R2, sledge, insert. So that again, is that it flows very smoothly. For this case, when the unsolved edges surround the corner, you do wide R, U prime, wide R prime, U2, wide R, U, R prime, and solve the pair. That one, that one's long, but it's fast, I guess. It's another one that I'm trying to switch to as we speak, because I kind of used to just intuitively solve edges from there. For this one, when the unsolved edges make a line, you do L prime, U2, L2, F prime, L2, U, L prime, U, L, F, yeah. For this case, this one's intuitive. You just do U prime, L prime, U2, L2, F prime, L prime, F. For this case, when it's a dot, you do R, U prime, R2, F, R, F2, U prime, F. You could probably, wait, let me set that up. Wait, hold up. F prime, F2. Yeah, so for this one, you could probably like rotate, and that might actually be faster than doing the F moves, but I just have it written down as the F moves because I think that would be better, just because no rotations, but I don't know. For this case, when it's like solved, you like do that, yeah, you know it. For this case, this one should be intuitive. When it makes a line, you do. It's just a 6 mover. That one's nice. For this case, it's also intuitive. It's just R prime sledge. For this case, when the solved edges surround the corner, you do R prime U, and then this case, which you learned in the first video. This case, when the unsolved when the unsolved edges surround the corner, you do U2, F, R, U star prime, F prime. That one's pretty nice, but there's a rotation, so. For this case, when the unsolved edges make a line, you do U, R, U, R prime, U, F prime, L prime, U prime, L, F. For this case, when this one's pretty intuitive, you do a sledge, or no, a hedge, yeah, and then you cancel into solving this pair intuitively. For this dot case, you start here, you start with an M prime, U, R, U prime, Y, R prime, U, and then solve that one. This is the final set where both pieces are separate and they're in the top. So for this one, you solve it intuitively. For this case, this one's also intuitive. You just insert the unsolved edge, but you can do it like that if you wish, but that's also just as fast. For this case, you can do rotate and do that alg. So R prime F, R prime F prime R2, very fast. For this case, when the solved edges surround the corner, you do R2, U2, R2, F, R, F prime, and solve. So yeah, this one's like really weird, but I like it, it's fast. In this case, when the unsolved edges surround the corner, you do F prime, L prime, U2, L, F. Nice five mover, sorry. For this case, when you do, bro. You know what, I'm keeping that in, I don't care. For this case, when you have the two unsolved edges in a line, you do L prime, U prime, L, U prime, and then in this case. For this case, when the solved edge is in between the edge and the corner, you do F prime, L prime, U prime, L, U prime, F, insert. And for the final case of this broad subset, you do, when you have a dot case, basically, you do F prime, U prime, F, wide R, and you basically just do this case, like, you know it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. This set is the flipped edge free pairs. So for this first alg, you just solve it as you would normally. For this case, when the solved edges make a line, you want to you do R, U prime, R prime, U, R, U prime, R2, F, R, F prime, insert. So it's basically just like you kind of like separate the pair, U, and then you have this case, which you solve like that. For this case, when these two are in the back and they're solved, you want to hedge, U prime, solve the pair. For this case, when these two are solved and this one's unsolved, you do U prime, you insert the unsolved edge into the pair, and then you solve it like that. That one's intuitive. For this case, when the solved edge is opposite the pair, you do F prime U, L prime U2 L, U2 F. For this case, when the solved edge is connected to the pair, you rotate R, U2, R2, U prime R. You basically solve the pair. So you literally like you solve this pair disregarding this slot, and then when that's over, you just have a sledge. In this case, when the solved edge is adjacent to the pair, you do F prime. You basically create a line, and then you do that, and you kind of just solve the pair from there. This is like a deep pull. If y'all remember like Fruff stuff that Jay McNeil like not popularized, but like he made that. That's what that alg feels like to me, except it's on FR instead of FL. For this case, when it's a dot case, you do hedge, U prime, solve. For this case, you just solve the pair as you normally would, like that, I assume. For this case, I do not have a good alg for it. I literally just insert this unsolved edge, U, and solve the pair. This is one of those where like it might just be faster to do, to like just solve the F2L paired to OLL, but I tend to not do that. I just do the case, but yeah. For this case, when the unsolved edge is connected to the pair, you do RU prime R prime U, solve the pair, sledge. For this case, when the unsolved edge is on this side of the pair, you do U, F prime, U2, F, U prime, R, U, R prime. That one's another intuitive case. For this case, when the solved edge is opposite the pair, you do R, Y, D prime. So I kind of do it like that. So it's like, yeah. And then R, U2, R prime, U2, F prime, solved. This case, when the solved edge is like this with the pair, you do U2, you literally start with fat left anti-soon, and then you insert the pair. So you literally just do like, sorry, my hands are cold, so I'm not turning well, but yeah. For this case, when the solved edge is here relative to the pair, you do hedge, and then you solve. For the dot case of this set, you do hedge, RU, R prime, U, sledge. Pretty intuitive. The next set, or subset, is connected with the white piece on the side, like this. So for this case, pretty self-explanatory. You solve the pair. For this case, with the line, you rotate L, F prime, L2, U, L, U, solve. These two cases are very similar. So you start, for both of them, you start like that. And then this is probably the worst recognition system I have, but it works. So like I don't really bother with it. But basically, if this piece is like, if this piece has your last layer color on top, then you do U prime R. No, you do U2 R U prime R prime. So this one basically, you do M prime U R U R prime U2 R U prime R prime, and then for this case, when it's like these, you do that. I think a better recognition system would probably be to just know which one is which is what I recommend you do, but I'm just truly explaining how I do it, and that's just how it works for me. It's kind of started to become automatic with these two cases. I've gotten them enough to where I'm like pretty comfortable with them, but yeah, they're fast, which is what matters, I guess. For this case, when the solved pieces in the back and the unsolved pieces make a line, you do a sledge, U prime, another sledge, insert. For this case, when they're all connected like this, the solved piece and the pair, you do M prime, U prime, R, U prime, wide R prime, U2, and then solve. For this case, when this solved piece is like adjacent to the pair, you do R, U, R2, F, R. You could rotate and solve, or you could just do that. For this case, when it's a dot case, you do R prime, F, R, U2, wide R prime, F prime, R, U prime, L prime, U prime, L. For this case, this is starting with the mirrors. You literally just solve it. For this case, when it's a line of solved pieces, you almost sledge, you solve the pair, U prime, solve. For this case, when the solved pieces are here, you do R, U, R prime, U, kind of like yourself in the pair normally, and then you just do an S move insert. For this case, when the solved pieces are here, you do U2, R, U, R prime, U, and then do that. For this case, when the unsolved edges make a line, you insert, U prime, sledge, solve. For this case, when the solved piece is connected to the pair, you do R, U prime, R prime, U2, and then this case, which you should have learned. For this case, when these two are unsolved, you do or u prime, r prime, u prime, and then you solve the pair with that case that you learned in the first video. For this case, when it's a dot case, you can either do that, but the alg I prefer is r u prime, r prime, u2, r u, r prime, u, and then insert. For this case, when it's starting with this set, when it's like the two colors on top are the same, and the edges are solved, you do a commutator to solve, and then you insert. For this case, when there's a solved line, you do L, U, wide R, U prime, wide R prime, U prime, L prime. So, yeah, I got that case way too often. Like, I'm like so good at it now. Shut up. For this case, when the solved edges are here, the pair is here, you do U, sledge, U, insert. This case is another commutator into a sledge. When it's like this, kind of, you do U, R prime, D prime, R, U prime, R prime, D, FR, F prime. For this case, when the unsolved edges make a line, you do R, U, R prime, U2, and then R, U prime, R2, F, R, F prime. For this case, when the pair and the solved edge are connected like this, you do R, U2, R2, F, R, F prime, U2, insert. For this case, when this piece is here relative to the pair, you do, it's kind of similar to a case from the last video, you do like lefty fat soon, basically. You do lefty fat soon, and then you insert the pair. Yeah. For the dot case, what you can think about it, if you already know the case I'm about to sub to, then you can think about it like that. But if not, you can do like R, U prime, R prime, but then you cancel into this case. So it's like R, U prime, R, D, R prime, U, R, D prime, R prime, U prime, R prime. Starting with the mirrors for this case now. For this one, you just solve the pair normally, like that. For this case, when the solved edges make a line, you rotate. You do wide R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R, U, wide R. For this case, when the unsolved edge is connected to the pair like this, you do R, U prime, R prime, U2, rotate, insert. For this case, when the unsolved edge is adjacent to the pair like this, you do hedge, R, U prime, U2, R, U, R prime, or insert rather. Yeah, you get what I mean. For this case, when the solved edge and the pair make kind of like a J shape like this, you do U prime, R, U prime, R prime, U2, rotate, S prime, R prime, U prime, R, S. For this case, when there's a square kind of made by the solved edge and the pair, you do R, U prime, R prime, U2, wide R, U, R prime, or that was all with wide R's. So you do that, and then you insert the pair. For this case, the way you can think about it is if you know this case, right, you do like that, and then you do that. You can think about it as if you're doing an R, U2, R prime insert, but then you cancel into the case. So it's just R, U, R prime, and then you solve. So it's R, U, R prime, and then you can also do that if you want, but I just like to do that for flow's sake. The dot case for this set is very similar. You do R, U2, R prime into this. Starting with the set where they are connected and the white piece is on the top. This case, solve it as normal. When it creates a line like this, you want to do R, U2, R prime, U, and then solve that zbls. When the unsolved piece is connected to the pair like this, you want to do sexy move, hedge, solve the pair. When the unsolved edge is adjacent to the pair, you want to do R, U2, R prime, U prime, and then an S move insert like that. when the solved edge is connected to the pair like this, you want to do r, u prime, r prime, u prime, and then solve this case. So that would be, so r, u prime, r prime, u prime, hedge, u2, insert. When there's a line of unsolved edges like this, you want to do r, u2, r prime, f, u, r, u prime, r2, f prime, r. So it's just a setup into this case, which you should know by now. So for this case, when the solved edge is adjacent to the pair like this, you want to do hedge, and then you solve the pair. So for this case, when it's a dot case, you want to do r, u2, r prime, u prime, solve the pair. Starting with the mirrors, this case, self-explanatory, you know it. This case is also pretty intuitive, especially if you've just learned the last one. When it's a line, you want to do L prime, U2, L, U prime, and solve that zbls. For this case, when the unsolved edge is connected to the pair like this, you want to hedge, and then you solve that pair. Pretty spammy, but very long. For this case, when the unsolved edge is adjacent to the pair, you want to do sledge, r, u prime, and then long sledge. You get it. For this case, when the pair and the edge are connected like this, you want to do r, u2, r prime, r, u, r prime, u2, r, u, r prime, u, and then like an M move, I guess. That one's weird. I'm in the process of learning it still, but I think it's the best dog for that case. For this case, when the solved edge is opposite the pair and these create a line, you want to do sledge, r, u prime, r2, f, r2, u, r prime, u prime, f prime. So it's like, so you sledge, r, u prime, r prime, and then you solve this case. For this case, when the solved edge is adjacent to the pair like this, you want to rotate r prime, u2, and then if you notice, it's like this case kind of, which you might know, or might have like at least figured out. It's the mirror of this case, basically. So you do r prime, u2, wide r, u, insert the pair, solve. So it's just, that's how you execute it. For the dot case, for the dot case, you want to do hedge, r, u prime, r prime, u, solve. Alright, starting with these cases where they're like matching on the sides. This case, there's a few good ways to do it though, but just solve the pair, like you get it. For this case, when the solved edges make a line, you want to do a u, r prime, u prime, r, u prime, r prime, u, sledge. For this case, when the unsolved edge is adjacent to the pair like this, you want to do u, r, u prime, r prime, u prime, r, u prime, r2, f, r, f prime. That last trigger is something that you see very often in these cases. For this case, when the unsolved edge is connected to the pair like this, you want to do r prime, f, r2, u, r prime, u prime, and then r prime, f prime, r, and then insert the pair. For this case, when the solved edge is adjacent to the pair like this, you're going to do u, hedge, u, r, u, r prime. For this case, when the unsolved edges make a line, you want to do r, u2, r prime, and then this case. For this case, when the pair and this edge make a square, you want to do you want to set it up to here, r, u prime, r prime, u, r, u, r prime with wide moves, and then insert the pair. For this case, when it's a dot case, you want to do hedge, u, and then an S move, insert. Starting with the mirrors, this case, you solve the pair as you would intuitively. For this case, when there's a line of solved pieces, you want to do r, u prime, r prime, u, and then you have this case, which you learned in one of the first subsets, like that. So for this case, when the unsolved edge is adjacent to these pieces, you want to do u prime, you want to do l prime, u, l, u, and then this case, but lefty. Yeah. For this case, this is maybe how you learned it originally, but how you recognize it is that you kind of recognize it almost as if you would for this OLO where the two unsolved edges are here. It's the same thing. You do F, U, R, U prime, R prime, F prime, and then you insert. For this case, when the solved edge is like this relative to the pair, you want to do F, U, R, U prime, R prime, F prime, U prime, sledge. It's the same as the last case, but you do a sledge at the end instead. A prerequisite for knowing the next three cases is knowing this case, which you do R, U prime, R prime, U2, R, U, R prime with wide moves. And you basically, the edge on the left, and it's like this. This is what I learned like very early on because it's like one of those like F2L trick ones where you like avoid a dot case. But yeah, if you know that, then the next three should be very easy. Hence, this case, you do U, R, U prime, R prime, and then you solve that case. This case as well, you do R, U prime, R prime, and then U, and then you do the case. And then for this one, you do U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, and then you do the case. So those three are very similar, and once you know one, you kind of know them all, as long as you know where to put the edge. This next set is the biggest subset of cases that is on the sheet. There's like, well, I don't feel like counting, but it's like 32 algs, I think, but yeah. This first case, when the corner is in the bottom and the edge is in the top, and it looks like this, you do F prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R. For this case, when it's a line and the edge is here, you do sledge, insert. Most of these you should know how to do. Like, if you, like, this is probably way too late in the video to be saying this, but, like, a lot of these cases are literally just, like, you solve EO intuitively while solving the pair. Obviously, some of them are just, like, algs that you have to learn, but, like, especially for, like, this set, a lot of them are, like, really intuitive, and you should know them before you think about, like, actually learning, like, zbls, or even zbl, for that matter, low-key, but, yeah, y'all get what I'm saying, like, y'all are smart, I don't know, I just like having the visual, y'all get it. For this case, you do, F prime, U, F, insert. For this case, you do U prime, F prime, U prime, F, and then you insert. Alright, for this one's actually like an alg that you have to know. It's R prime, F, R, F prime, U2, and then you solve the pair. That's less intuitive, so, you know, you'll actually learn something there. Alright, for this one, when it's like, yeah, you get the vibes. You want to insert the edge, U2, and then solve that, like, pretty intuitively. For this case, when it makes a line, you bring out the corner like this to build this pair, and then U prime, and then you solve intuitively. For this case, when it's a dot, you do R2, D, R, wide R prime, U, R, D prime, R prime, U prime, R prime. So you do R2, D, build the pair, D prime, R prime, U prime, R prime. The mirrors are very similar. You do, for this one, low-key, like, I guess, like, that is fine. I don't know. I tend to just, like, I guess I rotate for that one, usually. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I guess you could do a calm, but that's not good. Yeah, I don't know. I just rotate for it. That's probably bad. For this one, but there's a line, R, U prime, R prime, sledge. Pretty intuitive. For this case, when it's like this, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F, intuitive. And similar vein, you know, for this one, you do sexy move and then F moves to solve the pair. For this case, when it's like this, you do U, R, U prime, R prime, U, and then you do this pair, this zbls case. For this case, if you do unsexy move, you get a dot. you can do u r u prime r prime, and then white r u r prime u2 solve with m moves. For this case, when the solved edge and the regular edge make a line, you do u r u prime r prime u prime, and then solve that solved pair zbls. For this case, when it's a dot, you do u r d r white r prime u prime white r d prime r2. So do that again. R U R. So it's basically just like literally like insert and then you solve that pair. So yeah, bang. Except there's a cancellation, but yeah. Now for when the edge is in the slot and the corner is in the top, there's 3 of these, which is why this is the longest set. This one, you solve it intuitively. For this case, there's not really a good like alg for this. I just insert and then do whatever you want to do for this case, which for me is that, but yeah, that one's intuitive. This case is similar. You literally just solve the pair and then u2 and then you do your alg for that case. For this case, when the unsolved edges surround the corner, you do hedge, then you solve the pair. This case is another one where you literally just do r u prime r prime to build the pair, and then you do your alg for that case, which is a nice move insert. This case is similar. You should be doing this already. You just do r u prime r prime u sledge. For this case, when the solved edges surround the corner, you do u prime f prime u2 l prime u2 l f. For this case, you want to do r u r prime to build this case, and then you can do that very fast. Starting with when the corner is like twisted this way, you want to do a commutator to solve this. You could do 2gen, but I don't like having lots of u2 moves. If you can avoid it, I mean, it's like fine, but like the commutator is just, you can do that stupid fast. So yeah. For this case, when it's like a line like this and it's like it builds like an L, the unsolved pieces build a it builds like a J shape. Yeah, the unsolved pieces build a J shape. You do that, and then you solve that pair, or that zbls case rather. For this case, which is like, it looks similar to the last one, but you just like r u2 r prime u prime, and you insert. I don't have a good recognition system for like distinguishing between like the two like line cases, but I probably should, but I don't. But I kind of just do it off vibes. Like if it looks like I can do the one, I'll go do the other. Or if it looks like I could do one of the algs and it'll solve it, then I'll do it. If not, then I do the other alg, which is probably not. It's definitely not a good recognition system to have, but yeah. For this case, when the unsolved edges surround the corner, you want to do f r prime f2 r u prime r prime f. For this case, this should be intuitive. You should know this one already. You should do l prime u l u. Yeah. Y'all get it, man. Y'all get it. For this case, it's like when the corner is like here relative to the solved edges, you do r prime, and then you solve that pair. When the solved edges surround the corner, you rotate u f u2 r prime f prime. Excuse me, sorry. For this case, it's pretty intuitive. You just take out the edge u2, and then you do the dot case. All right, now for when the white is on top, you just do triple unsexy or triple sexy, however you want to do it. For this case, when you can just do like, when it's like a line, you can do that. You could also do that, but I don't like having S moves if I can avoid it, you know? This is the mirror of that last case. You do double unsexy, then sledge. This case, when the unsolved edges surround the corner, you want to do that, which is just hedge, double sexy. For this case, you can do like, there's a few ways to do it, but it's pretty intuitive. It's basically just like you want to sledge on the unsolved pieces. and then do that. This case is the mirror of that last one. You want to do hedge and then insert. For this case, when the solved edges are on the corner, you want to do hedge on the unsolved edges, and then insert the pair. For the dot case, this one is just all the r's are wide r's, so you do r u2 r prime u2 r u prime r prime u2 solve. All right. Next subset is the like the double sexy variants. So this one you solve it intuitively. For this case, when it's like a line, you want to do f prime u prime f u prime r u2 r prime. Basically you just insert the you just insert the edge with f moves and then you solve. For this case, when I recognize it by like these are solved and an f prime would put this one solved with them as well, I rotate and I do r prime u2 sledge r. So it's like r prime u2 and you insert the pair with sledge. So you kind of think of it as like a cancellation into this case from this angle, which is like that. So yeah. For this case, you do a similar thing to the second case for the set. You do f prime u2 f r u2 r prime. So you just insert the edge with f moves and then you solve the pair. If you've gotten this far, you should know this case. It's literally just r u prime sledge. Yeah, it's an integral part of most of the cases in this video. So yeah. For this case, this one's very simple. You just do the first unsexy, and then you do the zbls, which you already know. For this case, you do r u prime r prime u, and then that case, which you already know. Or if you want to do it the other way that I showed in the first section, you can. For the dot case, you want to put the edge here, r u prime r prime, and then you have this case, which is m prime u prime m u2, and then solve. That you should already know that case from earlier in the video. Now with the mirror, when you have this case, you just solve it intuitively. For this case, it's similar to one of the last set ones. You just insert the pair, and then and then solve. For this case, you do r. So if you do r, then these three are solved, and then you can do r u2, and then rotate and solve it in the back, kind of. So it's r u2, and then r u prime r prime u l prime. For this case, it's if you basically just want to insert this edge, and then these three are solved. But how you'd finger trick it is, instead of doing like a r2 r prime like that, you do hand on thumb on bottom, and I like to do r2 r prime f prime u2 f, and then regrip, because I just find that to be a really fast way of doing it. Yeah, I kind of lock up on it sometimes, but I mean it's 6 moves, so it can't be that bad. Another case that has showed itself already, just L prime U, L2, F prime, L prime F. This case is basically just insert into a solved pair case, but you literally just do that and then do that pair, which you already know. So R U R prime U prime and solve that pair. This case is similar to the last one. You just do R U prime U prime and then you solve that case, which you already know. For the dot case of this one, you do R U R prime U2 and then this case, which you already know. For this case, there's like 2 good ways to do it. You could do sledge and then insert, or you could do double back sexy or double left sexy. Either way, it's intuitive and it's probably how you already solved this case. For this case, you do R U prime R prime F prime U prime F. So it's like that. For this case, when the solved edges are in the back like this, you do double sledge. For this case, you do when the solved edges are in the back right like this, you do sledge, and then you do this pair. So if you have sledge and then a case you already know basically. For this case, when they're connected like this, the edge and the SQL edge and the solved edge, you do U, F prime, insert like that. So F prime and then wide R, U, R to prime, F prime, R. Yeah, this one's intuitive. You should hopefully know that one. For this one, when the unsolved edge is in the back like this, you do a sledge, U, and then an S move insert. Or if you're gonna execute it properly, unlike me, then you're gonna do, yeah. When there's a line of unsolved edges like this one, you want to rotate L prime, U prime, L, U prime, and then solve that case, which you already know. For this case, you want to do M prime, U prime, M, when it's the dot case of this set. M prime, U prime, M, U2, R, U prime, wide R prime, no, regular R prime, U, R, U prime, wide R prime. So it's basically just like, yeah, okay, yeah, M prime, U prime, M, U2, and then you kind of do like a double sexy almost. Starting with the mirror, this one is just double sexy, you know that one. For this one, you do a pretty intuitive EO and then insert the pair. For this one is just double hedge. For this case, this one, it's like you do sledge and then you do the pair as you would. This case, pretty intuitive. You do hedge and then you insert. So yeah, just hedge on these two unsolved edges. For this case, you basically do R, U, R prime, then you cancel into this case. So R, U, wide R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, M prime. For this case, when there's a line of unsolved edges, you do R, U, R prime, U, and then solve that. For the dot case of this one, it's pretty intuitive. You just R, U, R prime, U prime, and then you solve the zbls. All right, now with any case, these are all the cases with the flipped edges. So for these ones, I'm gonna take a little different approach for these ones because these are all intuitive. You basically just like, for every single one of these, you insert the edge, and then you solve the pair. So you insert the unsolved edge into the slot, and then you solve the pair basically. So all of them are like easy to do. And like there's like other ways you can do it, like for this one you can do instead of, but I expect that if you're learning zbls you should already know that case. Yeah. For this case, when the solved edge is here, you want to do R, A prime, R prime, U, R prime, G prime, in that case. So R, A prime, R prime, U, and then an alg, you know. For this case, when the solved edge is like connected to the corner like this, you want to do U prime and double sledge. Or not double sledge, but like U prime, sledge, U prime, sledge. When the solved edge is connected to the corner like this, you want to do hedge, U hedge. For this case, you want to do, when it's like this with the edge, you want to do R, U prime, U2, and then this alg that you know. For this case, this is how most people solve it, I believe. You just do sledge and then insert the pair. For this case, when when it's a flipped edge, but the three edges on top are not solved, you do R, U prime, it's like wide R, U prime, R prime, R, U, R prime, U, and then you solve. This is one where like I honestly would probably learn it better just by looking at the alg. Like I remember I really struggled like just getting this case into my muscle memory, but it's like basically just 4 inserts. R, U prime, R prime, R, U, R prime, U, insert, insert. Yeah, it's dumb, but it's good. For this case, when it's like this pair into here, you do R, F, U, R, U prime, R prime, F prime. So it's like R and then F unsexy, F prime, U prime, R prime. Yeah, that's how to explain it. This case, I kind of taught it earlier, but it's just that. So R, U prime, R prime, U2, R, U, R prime, insert. And that was a prereq for one of the other cases. For this one, where like the edge is solved, you just solve it intuitively. Just make sure you're inserting the edge into the slot to do EO. And for this case, you want to do R, U prime, R prime, and then that alg. Or, I mean, if you prefer, you can do that, but I think like that's probably faster for most people. So this is another case where you should know how to do these just intuitively, especially by now, if you made it this far. You could, for this one, just insert the edge. For this one, just insert the edge. For this one, just insert the edge. And for this one, just insert the edge. Although this one's actually a little different. You could like, wait, yeah, no, for this one I insert this edge and sledge, but like you should still already know that. But yeah, like, I don't know, this one's a weird one because you do the sledge, but like it's still very intuitive, and I expect that you know that. But if not, it's on the sheet. So this next case is kind of weird. You do R, U, light R, U prime, R prime, U, then you sledge, and then you solve. So it's like, it's pretty fast, it's just like weird. For this case, where it's like this arrow, and then you do R, U prime, R, D, R prime, U prime, R, D prime, R2, but with like wide moves sometimes. For this case, you do U prime, R, U, R prime, U, and then solve that pair that you already know. For this case, you do sledge, U2, into that case, which you already learned. These cases, similar to the ones from the last set, you literally just insert the edge, solve, you insert the edge, and you solve. This one's different. It's a little weird, but like you just insert the edge like that, and then you sledge, and then you two insert the edge, solve. For this one, this case is pretty intuitive. You just insert into the alg for that case. This case is also pretty intuitive. You do sledge, and then you do that alg that you already know. For this case, you do an F move insert to build the pair, and then solve that as you would. For this case, you do F prime, U prime, F, but then you it's like F2, and then you solve as you would. But it's basically just cancellation in that case. And now for the final set of zbls. This case, solve it intuitively. When it's a line, you want to do R, U prime, R prime, U prime, and then solve. For this case, when solved edges are in the back, you want to do a hedge and then solve the pair. When it's a dot case, you do R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U prime, R prime, U into this case. For this case, you solve it intuitively, as you would. For this case, when it's a line, you do R, U to R prime, U, and you solve that case as you would. When there's two edges unsolved like this, you put the solved edges here, and then R, U prime, R prime, U, and solve that case. And finally, for the last case of zbls, you do, for this one, ru to r prime, and then you solve this case, which you already know.